been listening to podcasts for 12 years now or something.
Yeah. That's yeah, they've been around forever. Like it started as people just like broadcasting their playlist or whatever, you know. And then it turned into like, oh, I can just do my own radio show. I can like, oh, this is fucking cool. This is 21st century shit, baby.
Low cost.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I got this set up for less than $300. Well, after all said and done, I had to go to. I'm gonna bleep that out because fuck that place. But I had to go buy these mic stands because I was looking all over. You know, the music store is right over there. I went over there thinking, oh, they'll have drum. Mic stands. It's perfect for a podcast. Mm-hmm. But the only ones they had like fucking giant basses on. Like, I'm not trying to lift a 50-pound tiny mic stand onto a desk somewhere. You know,
these are great though.
They are great. I wish I had a boom. I wish I had a little boom on them, so you don't have to fucking lean in, eat the mic so much. But they work, and that's all I really need is something that holds a microphone. So yeah, thanks for coming over and hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know you had a busy night last night, so that's cool.
It was a long, busy day, I guess.
Yeah. But it went well, right? You had a good time.
Yeah.
You got to.
The festival is great. Like I said, first time festival, the Red Rose Film Festival. Seems like they have some good sponsorships behind it, and like they want to do something good for Lancaster, which is weird for me, but
right. And I'm glad that I kind of stuck around a little bit because I thought about moving to Philly so many times, and before I bought this house, and then it was like, well, I started seeing stuff going on, started seeing stuff happening, and it's like, well, Lancaster's actually, it's coming around. We're not all Amish like everybody thinks, you know. And it's definitely, it's cool to see the younger generation of people, the people who basically grew up here, starting to come through and do really cool independent movie theaters. Mm-hmm. There's art galleries and venue like performance venues opening up all the time, and different places are branching out into having performances too, so that's like really cool. It's just a really, really good art scene, and I think it has been for a while, but there just hasn't been like the support for it. So that's really cool to see, and it makes me happy now that like I live here, I own property. It's gonna increase in value, and maybe one day I will be able to move somewhere else, you know, and God forbid this fucking podcast takes off. Maybe I'll be able to make some money with this.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna do my little intro. We had a little. So
I'll play with the cat.
Oh, that's cool. It takes a second for me to do it. Let me get into character. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Human Interaction Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Hambone Hambleton. And today I have with me Brenden Hubbard. Brenden is an actor, director, producer, all those fucking cool things that we all dream of doing when we're kids. So hello, welcome to the House of Hambone.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So Brendan's in town. You heard us talking about the Red Rose Film Festival. He's in town because film that he worked on. You were a producer or director?
It's my first time writing and directing.
Awesome.
So
that's cool. It's called The Helping Hand,
yep.
Right? And I didn't really get to see much about it besides you sharing, like, oh, we're filming, we're doing this stuff, which is awesome to see. I always, Brenden and I are friends. We're not like super close friends, but we have mutual friends and we've hung out a few times, and it's always cool to see someone living their dream, follow. Hey, you laugh, but that's what you're doing, right? I mean, you went to school for this shit. You've worked hard, and now you put your first movie out that you wrote and directed. which really is the dream for anybody who wants to be in that.
It's true.
Unless you're going for like acting specifically, but
nah, I don't have the face for it.
Yeah. I feel the same way, man. I feel like I don't have, I'm not good enough at like being a character.
Yeah.
I always end up just being myself, and which you can get away with if you're the right kind of person. But
if you write that role into a movie, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at, I feel like Paul Rudd's one of those guys who,
yeah,
he's just Paul Rudd in every movie. It's just what are they calling him that day, But that's really cool that you got to come back to basically your hometown and premiere your movie.
Yeah, it was strange. Like we were talking about before we started, like Lancaster is just this whole different beast. Like when I grew up, there was a weird porn store and a shitty music venue, and that's the only reason you went to Lancaster.
Yeah, dude.
And beyond that, you just protect your money, try not to get robbed.
Right.
And then you go to Philadelphia and try to make yourself.
Yeah. Now, you went to school in Philly?
Yeah, I went to Temple University.
Okay.
So left when I was 18 and haven't been back other than to see family here and there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really nice to like see some sort of push towards filmmaking and the arts in Lancaster. So
yeah. And the venue was Zootropolis, which is an independent movie theater. And they've done all kinds of stuff there too. Aside from showing movies, they've had storytelling events and comedy events and things like that. And it's really just a great space. And as much as it is sort of gentrifying that area of town a little bit by they have a distillery there, and they have a nice, hipstery brew pub and all that stuff. But it is great to see something like that popping up in Lancaster, because there hasn't been anything like that here ever. I mean, you have your craft breweries, you have your local breweries that make really great beer, but that's it. They don't have, there's not like a complex around them where you can go see the hottest indie movie and then grab a bite to eat and then go try some craft liquor or stuff like that, like all in the same 100 yards. You know?
Yeah, it's nice to see that starting to happen in this area. If only I owned a house like some people.
Yeah, yep. I'm fortunate enough. And I always offer, like, I got a spare room. People want to come throw some rent and hang out in Lancaster. Fuck, man. I was downtown last night. I'm like a mile from downtown, so it's not a bad walk. Unless you smoke a pack and a half a day like I do, and you're fucking out of shape. Cause yeah, I spent all day yesterday, pouring concrete, first of all, in the morning for like 4 or 5 hours. And then I came back and finished building my fence in my backyard. And then I was like, fuck, I told people I would go out and be social, and I just want to go to sleep, and it's 5 o'clock. It's 5 p.m. and I just want to go to sleep. But I didn't. I walked downtown and hung out with people. I was social, which is, if I have any repeat listeners at this point, the whole point of this podcast is to try to socialize with people and be a human. Yeah. Be a person. So I was proud of myself, and you should be proud of me too, everybody. So, the movie that you premiered last night, The Helping Hand, what's it all about? I don't know, spoilers, obviously. We want people to check it out, but you always, at least from just the small glimpses I get, it kind of seems like you work in a we'll say a darker realm of comedy, or maybe even horror.
Exactly,
yeah. So, explain, just give a little synopsis, or,
Yeah, so it's a pretty short movie, and the idea came about, basically I was in LA with my producing partner, Damon Russell, for another film festival that we ended up winning, called the NBC Short Film Festival.
Okay.
And
cool.
While we were there, he just had a newborn, and they were in an Airbnb, and we're sitting there drinking some wine, and they had a little baby monitor sitting at the table. And I was like, well, how do you know the guy who owns this Airbnb isn't like recording and talking to your kid?
Well, and that's been a thing that happened too, like people hiding cameras in the bathrooms and shit. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So we were starting to get a little drunk, and I just started spitballing this idea about like, what if the baby monitor's like kind of indoctrinating your kid and like convincing them like to do other things that like you would be against. And then I kind of hit up an old college friend, this guy Brian Barnes, who lives in LA. He's a screenwriter. And I was like, look, being a producer is not, the best thing for my career. I need to start branching out. I really want to direct this project. And him and I wrote a script in a couple weeks. And because we won the NBC Shorts Film Festival, we had a free camera package and free gear.
Oh, that's great. Because that's the hardest part, is getting that shit together.
It's very expensive. And, making a indie short film, there's no money in it. So, finding any investor is like bonus.
Right.
So having the gear was huge. So basically I moved to Atlanta for 2 months because my producing partner, Damon Russell, lives there. And he wanted to shoot a short film. And we were just like, well, let's piggyback it. And we shot 2 shorts in 3 days, which was really kind of a mind fuck because the first 2 days was me like producing his project and like worrying about catering and like all this budgetary things.
Right.
And then I woke up and it's like, oh, I have to shoot a 10-page script in 1 day. Yeah. Which, for those of you who aren't filmmakers, like if you shoot 3 pages in a day, that can be like a pretty good day. So this was basically, I got to shoot, I mapped it out to where like I knew exactly what I wanted or thought I wanted. I mean, obviously, as I watched the movie over and over, I think I've been in 40 festivals at this point.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, like as I watch it more and more, it's like, oh, I wish I could have got coverage here, or wish I could have got this extra shot, or something creepy and eerie just to cut away to. But I got what I got, and I'm proud of it. So long story short, the film is about these parents that get a baby monitoring system to raise their child for them. The family kind of starts becoming more distant. The mother, father aren't quite getting along to the point where they barely communicate. The mother's kind of stuck on her phone all the time. And this kid basically starts getting raised from childhood. She's now 6. And the device itself kind of has this D-Day that it's built throughout the community. So she ends up killing her parents.
Okay.
And I guess the reveal of the movie is like the whole neighborhood kind of like it all hit at once. So there's all of a sudden like there's these children just running around like kind of they all get like a present for like completing their service basically.
So is that supposed to be some, a little bit of like social commentary on absentee parents, or it sounds like that the monitoring system sounds kind of similar. Jeez, I got to learn to talk, guys. It sounds similar to like an Alexa or a Google Home, something like that, which I know people who have kids and all they want to do is fucking sit there and look at YouTube and shit like that. And that's a weird thing that I've seen. You got friends on Facebook and shit who have kids and they do those dumb quizzes where it's like, ask your kid this question, as if anybody fucking cares.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the most common answer I see when it's the question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the most common answer I see from kids who are like 8 years old and younger is a YouTuber. Like that's what they want to be, a YouTuber. And man, though, someone's got to dash their hopes soon, or at least give them like a realistic thing. Like, that's hard to do, buddy. Is there anything else you want to do? But no, the people are just like, yeah, you want to be a YouTuber, go for it. Yeah,
I mean, it seems fun. It's like podcasting. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna do these little skits, and people are gonna pay me lots of money.
Oh, and I've thought of it too. Like, I would love to start like a sketch group and just throw shit on YouTube. And I'm not saying I'm not gonna do that, but at this point, like, I don't expect to make money off of that.
Yeah.
This podcasting actually now has a really good venue to be able to make money. If you get a big enough following and you can start a Patreon or something like that, and if people like you, they'll give you some money, and you don't have to ask for a lot. If you get 100 viewer or 100 listeners, patrons, and they give you $5 a month, you're making $500 a month. You know, it's not nothing crazy, but you can keep building on that, you know. And,
exactly.
The good content can help you do that. Which is why I have people like you on, buddy. So, I just that's something that's crazy to me because, you know, when I was a kid, I wanted to do what you're doing. I wanted to make films. Like I was all about. I moved to LA when I was 19, specifically to live with my best friend, who we were gonna make the next fucking great movie, you know. Yeah. And then it turned into, well, maybe we'll make like the next great album. Maybe we'll just smoke weed a lot and like hang out, you know, because LA is not a good place for a 19-year-old from fucking Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
It's definitely a culture shock.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the problem with a lot of creatives. It's like your mind just keeps spinning because every day you have a new great idea, but like executing it is the problem. Because like, even for my short, The Helping Hand, like it's almost a 2-year process at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not financially viable. Like eventually I'll release it and maybe get some views out of it, you know, get some Amazon pennies.
Right.
They're 6 cents an hour they pay.
Yeah.
But for me, I want to extend my career from being a producer. I want to I have a long, basically I'm an alumni at like 300 film festivals.
Okay.
From all the projects I've done. So this was just kind of like, I want to share that I can direct, and I'm just going to go full force and like find any film festival that'll talk to me and wants to show my movie, and like hopefully from that I build in the next project. You know, instead of 40 film festivals, I get into 80.
Right.
You meet the filmmakers, you build your repertoire, and hopefully along the line you get to make, you know, bigger and better movies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now the other project that you were promoting recently as well, although your IMDb says it's from 2016, called Cul-de-sac.
Yes,
and you're listed as a producer on there, and I remember seeing you share thing. You know, we're going to this film festival with this movie, and it's like, that's again really, really cool. That sounds really, really fun to me. But I feel like, and I've talked to our mutual friend Jamie about this. He was on the previous episode, where for comedy, you know, people see me just doing open mics or whatever. Like, wow, that's really cool. Like, you got a show. It's like, well, it's not a show. It's an open mic. And I think he sometimes runs into that with music. It's so for you, for like me, from the outside standpoint, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And for you, you're like, it's a lot of fucking work. Like, it's it's, yes, this is what I want to do, but goddamn, it's a lot of work for very little reward until you get to a certain point.
Absolutely, especially like with Cul-de-sac. It was another passion project that I worked with these two guys, Damon Russell and Sean Christensen. Kind of did a few short films, a couple feature films. Had, you know, pretty decent success, especially festival-wise. And we've had films get picked up by A24 and IFC and all that sort of thing. But with Cul-de-sac, like, we just decided to get together for a weekend, and we just talked about this idea to shoot around Sean's house. And then he had a toddler at the time. He's like, well, I want to put, you know, my child in the movie, and like me and him will just kind of riff. So we came up with this like thriller idea that, you know, the baby finds this listening device in its teddy bear, and the father finds it, and then it turns into like, well, what is happening in this house? Like, why are they finding bugs everywhere? And you start to learn that like the mother comes home, and all of a sudden they're speaking in different languages to each other, and it becomes this like what is happening? Like, is someone after the child, or are the parents like part of some like spy group? And then there's this big party scene, and like basically everything kind of falls apart, and the family like goes home and has to leave because there's something after them. We're a little unsure. So it's very open-ended.
Okay.
But it was really fun. Like, we just shot that in a weekend on a whim.
Nice.
And like we ended up premiering at Toronto Film Festival, which is probably one of the top 5 in the world. But alongside that, like, you know, we have to kind of support it ourselves. Like no one's paying for our flights to go.
Yeah.
So all these film festivals are wonderful. Like, and actually Cul-de-sac is where we won the NBC award, which allowed us to make another short. But it's still like, you know, if it wasn't for certain festivals giving out awards and kind of grants, like it'd be really tough to make the next smaller project.
Yeah, well, and that's cool that these festivals do that as well. That it's not just like, okay, yeah, you brought this film and it was good, so here's a statue that says you made the best short film this year or whatever. It's like, okay, you brought this to us, we really liked it. Here's something that's going to help you continue to move up the ranks in your career. You know, that's great that that at least that festival does that. I don't know if that's a standard thing. I mean, obviously you get like cash prizes at some, which can help you for sure, because then you can afford to buy the shit. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of them, it's just a trophy or a certificate.
Yeah.
But you know, if the bigger ones, you know, you can find distribution. Like I took my short, we played at the Short Film Corner, part of Cannes Film Festival.
Okay.
So it's like a sidebar of the festival, but we had a screening, and because of that, I found a distributor to jump onto my short film.
Great.
They haven't quite done anything with it yet, but I have a distributor.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first step, really.
Yeah.
To getting it out to more eyes and ears, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even if they're taking it to all these foreign markets and they're saying no, like at least my name is getting circulated.
Yeah.
The idea is getting circulated. And if I come back and decide to finish the feature script of The Helping Hand, then I can use that as kind of motivation for them to want to, you know, buy it again later. So
I want to, you mentioned you went to a friend who's a screenwriter, and you mentioned writing a full-length script. That's something that I've found to be the most difficult part, really, of starting a project like this, because I've had ideas for sure, where, you know, it's like, oh, this, you know, I've had horror isn't really my genre per se. Like it's not what I've always been interested in, but I had like what I thought was a cool idea for like a horror film. There's my friend that I moved to LA with, and our roommate out there. We've been talking for 12 years now. That's when I moved out there, about just writing a script about our experiences in the 9 months that we lived together. And originally it was like, oh, we're gonna do like a trilogy, and as an homage to Star Wars, you know. But I suck at script writing. I'm terrible at it. I always end up just writing a fucking novel, and I don't know. And you know, I'll write. I guess they're called like treatments.
Yeah.
I'll write something like that, and I'll send it off to my friend he's involved in, or he was anyway. He was a Disney Channel child star, and he's written and produced. Yeah. Shout out J. Paul Zimmerman, baby, my roommate and brother. Played Dylan in the Disney Channel series Halloween Town. So this is actually one of his favorite times of the year because he gets a lot of royalty checks around this time. But he's a great dude.
Does he want to be in an indie movie?
I could put you in contact with him if you want, for sure. Just I'll need a 20% agent's fee.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, how many Twitter followers does he have?
I'm not sure. I don't even know if he's actually on Twitter or not. I think he is, and to be honest, that's one of those franchises that has like fanatical fans. So he might actually have a pretty good social media following, but I don't know for sure. I know he goes to conventions and things like that all the time, and I always see him posting pictures with fans and shit like that. So, but I'll send him a treatment, or you know, 1 or 2 pages of just this is what I want to happen, and it's always like just 2 pages out of a novel, because I can't stop myself from going into like the most detail possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, which you don't have to do with scripts, you know. You just have to get the general idea across, and I am not good at that.
Yeah.
And that's the feedback he'll give me. Like, you don't need to write all this stuff. You just need dialogue and maybe some short descriptors about the setting.
Yeah.
And I can't do it. I cannot do it. So do you find that difficult too, or have you done it enough that you're kind of used to how it's supposed to work, you know?
Yeah, I mean, every project's different when you start the writing. Like the feature that I'm writing right now with Damon Russell is, we started out with a treatment, and we got, like you said, like we just got into it. We have like a 14-page treatment about this movie. But then, like with The Helping Hand, me and Brian just kind of laid out an outline, which is like, here are the beats. Like, here's the end of the first act, end of the second act, end of the third act. And then we just kind of, I wrote it into a skeleton script, and then he kind of, because he's a more experienced writer, kind of went back over it and kind of fixed my like caveman scratch.
Yeah.
And like, you know, helped with some of the dialogue. Cause I'm not there with dialogue yet.
Okay.
Like, I'm there with like envisioning what's going to happen, what we're doing. But when it comes to like general conversation, like,
yeah.
To me, it's like, no, you just listen to someone and then you say one thing, and then, you know, everyone laughs.
Right.
Well, that's not how like normal people talk.
Yeah. And I run in, that's the feed I get, that critique, we'll say, from friends when I send stuff, you know, because I've also been working on like a novella and shit like that. And I think I finished 3 chapters in it, and I haven't touched it in like 6 years, but you know, I sent it to another friend of mine, and that was his response, was like, the dialogue really needs work. And I'm like, as I finish it, I'm like, this is fucking good. This is good dialogue. This is like Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino type shit, man. And he's like, dude, it's lame. I'm like, fuck. Okay.
You get that one feedback from someone, and you just, I mean, it's like you were saying earlier, like, you want to create this project and you think you did something perfect.
Right.
And someone gives you a little note, and you're like, oh, the whole thing's shot. Like,
yeah.
I'm on to the next project.
Throw it the fuck out.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand that for sure. And I think that's pretty common with creatives too, because you put so much of yourself into what you do. You know, it's you're putting your heart and soul into this shit, and to get a review like that, like, have you read any like poor reviews on any of the films that you've worked on?
Oh yeah, we've had some films get like almost personal attacks.
Ugh.
Like, it's not that the movie's bad, it's that the people making it shouldn't have made it. It's like,
oh, that's
all
some
right,
bullshit.
so
yeah.
maybe we pissed someone off that we don't know about.
Right.
But
well, and that's obviously in the comedy world, that is very common.
Yeah.
It's like people just don't like, especially with some of the bigger name comics that have been coming out with, you know, offensive material and stuff. It's like, it's really, the stuff they're saying isn't that bad. You know, I can see why someone might be offended by some of it, but really, you just don't like this person now, and you're looking for reasons not to like this person. And
right.
Yeah. So yeah, you always have to take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt, you know.
Oh, for sure. And to be honest, like, if you're getting your movie torn apart and you just premiered at Sundance or something,
yeah,
like, people are talking about your movie, so it doesn't matter if it's a good review or a bad review. You got your movie reviewed, and every year, you know, thousands of movies get made that no one talk about. So
yeah, and whether, you know, sometimes that can motivate someone to watch that film too.
For sure.
When it's like, oh, this was so terrible. Like, sometimes I'm more likely to watch a film that someone says is shitty than everybody raves about, because let's be honest, most of the time the general public are dumb. They don't,
for sure.
They don't have like that artistic style, and they're not film critics. They don't know what they're talking about, and even critics sometimes are fucking idiots. So
and a lot of times with indie movies, like, over the course of 10 years, like, you got trashed right away, but all of a sudden you have like this indie darling 10 years later, and it's like, everyone hated this movie, and now all of a sudden it's like 95% on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, and everyone like loves it. but you have to kind of go through that. I think I heard Rob Zombie talk recently, and he's like, yeah, House of Thousand Corpses got like trash, like they weren't going to put it out and all this other shit. And then he's like, well, last year the people that trashed my movie gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Right.
It's like everyone just wants like the initial shock and like, oh, you're going to fail at what you're doing.
Right.
And if you ignore them and keep going on and trying to push your career, and then all of a sudden you're like, you made this masterpiece in your first movie.
Yeah. That's a good point of view to have, I think, is you just got to grind. You just got to keep going, as difficult as that can be sometimes. Now, one film that I really wanted to talk about specifically today is one called, let's see, what was this from? 2014. It's called Before I Disappear. Had some pretty big name, maybe not at that time quite yet, but I mean Emmy Rossum.
Emmy Rossum was doing Shameless, and
right?
She was on the up and up.
Yeah. And you mentioned Ron Perlman. You're actually in the movie as part of his like entourage.
Yeah.
Which is pretty neat. As I was telling you before we started, I was talking to our friend Jamie about it, and I was recommending this movie to him that I found one night. Maybe not ironically or coincidentally. Maybe I was meant to find that movie that night, but I was down, dude. I was not feeling great about myself, about life, and I think it was on Netflix, and I saw it, and it was like a 98% match for me or something, and I was like, all right. I think I read the synopsis, and I thought this sounds interesting, and I loved it, dude. It was really good. And I'll give you a little plot summary from what I remember. I haven't seen it in a couple years, but the main character is feeling really depressed, and I forget who plays the main character.
Sean Christensen. He also wrote and directed it.
Oh, okay, awesome. That makes it even more interesting. I didn't know that. But he's suicidal, and in the first scene of the movie, he slits his wrists in a bathtub, and then his sister, played by Emmy Rossum, and she's the prototypical young go-getter business lady. She's moving up the ranks really quickly, and she needs him to watch her daughter for him.
Yeah.
Which that's his niece, and so he fucking wraps his wrists up and goes to fucking pick up his niece to watch her for the day, and it's a really dark movie, but it has a really inspirational ending because he kind of realizes that he wants to stick around just for his niece, basically.
Yeah.
You might be able to summarize it a little better than I can, but
I mean, that's a lot to remember for a few years ago.
Yeah,
it's more than I remember.
I told you I really liked the movie. I really identified with the main character. I don't have any nieces or nephews or anything like that, but just being in that spot and then realizing that, like, okay, no, I do have something to stick around for.
Yeah. I mean, you do have 2 slit wrists right now. But
yeah, well, yeah, but then you came over to do this podcast. I was like, oh shit, wrap these fuckers up. I got to get to it. But it was just one of those, and then the coincidence when it's like, oh yeah, Brenden was in that movie. And were you part of the crew and stuff like that too, or did you just act?
Yeah, I was a part of the crew. Basically, I had met Sean in 2009 because he was in a rock and roll band called Stella Star.
Okay.
And 2 weeks after I graduated college, my mentor Darren Morsey was like, hey, do you want to come out in guitar tech? So we went on the road, just started talking to Sean a lot because he was kind of selling some scripts in Hollywood at the time. And I told him, like, if you ever need any help, like, I'm glad to come up to New York and help out. And he's like, yeah, actually, we're going to shoot this short film. You want to just come up? And at the time, like, me and Darren, like, did art direction, and it was fun. We just, like, shot at his apartment, hung out as friends. It was called Brink. It's like 8-minute short film inspired by Darren's score. Like Darren just made an 8-minute piece of music, and Sean wrote a script to it.
I thought you were talking about the Disney Channel original movie Brink.
No.
Team Pup and Suds, baby.
I'd have a lot more money.
Yeah.
But from there, I think it was not too long after that, he's like, okay, well, I'm making something a little bigger. And again, we came up, just thought it was a couple friends. Turned out it was a little 20-person crew. Like, it was a legit movie, and we shot for a week. And that was the short film Curfew, which is what happened before I Disappear. Basically, Curfew is that story.
Okay.
It's a shorter version. It's basically, same thing. Like, he's in a bathtub slitting his wrists, gets this call from his estranged sister, and she's in a panic mode and needs him to babysit. And this, like, fun little... Because basically, his niece is way more intelligent and way more wittier than he is. So it's just, like, guy struggling to keep up with her.
In Before I Disappear, that was such a good relationship between those two characters. The Sean Christensen does great as the depressed guy, but the little girl was phenomenal in that movie.
Her name is Fatima Patacek.
Yes,
and actually, while we were shooting Curfew, the short film, she got the job as Dora the Explorer, the new voice. So she got that job while we were shooting it, and then Sean put together the movie, edited it, calls me up one day, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to do a festival run for it?" Don't really know what that means, but we want to do we want to submit to all the Academy Award festivals. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, took a bus to New York, $10 Chinatown bus.
Oh yeah.
Met with him, and he just handed me this printed out sheet of every Academy Award winning festival or qualifying. And he's like, "I'll throw you a couple bucks, just submit this. Here's a credit card, and we're just gonna do this." And I want to say 3 months after that, we got a phone call that we were in Clermont-Ferrand, which is the biggest short film festival you can do.
Okay.
It's in France, and they're like, "Yeah, you're accepted. You're gonna do a world premiere here." And then they called him up 2 days before the awards, and "You won an audience award. You have to have someone show up." So we flew our DP's mother, who lives in Dublin. Mm-hmm. We had to fly her to France so that she could accept the award. Because it was a huge deal. We just didn't know it was a huge deal yet.
Right.
And then from there, it just started blowing up. We ended up doing 150 film festivals, won 65 awards.
That's awesome.
And eventually we got qualified for the Academy Award, and then we got nominated. And then from there, we all thought it was a party. We went to LA.
Yeah.
Sean was going to the Academy Awards. We all had this huge house party at one producer's house. And then we won. And it was one of those weird moments where I actually left the party and I stood outside on the street in LA, and I was like, "We just won an Academy Award. This is
for what, best indie film?
Best short film.
Best short film. Oh, for Curfew.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that happened, and literally within 2 weeks, Sean's like, "Yeah, we're going into production on the feature."
That's awesome.
He had been writing a few different versions of a feature script along the festival run, because as we were going through, there was a lot of interest, and he really wanted to direct his first feature. So yeah, we won the award in end of February, and we were shooting in June, Before I Disappear.
Yeah.
So I guess the long roundabout was I was a part of it way before it happened, and then I ended up being an associate producer on the feature. But I also worked, I did whatever needed to happen, basically. I would help scout locations with Damon Russell, his other producer. Just did any PA work that needed to happen. It was my first feature.
Right.
I was well, I'm working with Sean, because Curfew was still doing its thing in the festivals. And then he was kind of, after the Academy Award, you get all these offers to do these other things. And he's like, "No, I want to make this feature." So he turned down a lot of bigger things to do this. So I was just me, Damon, and Sean were let's do this movie.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. I mean, obviously he had bigger producers on the project, found the money and all that. But at the end of the day, we premiered it at South by in competition. They only select 8 films a year, something like that.
That's pretty cool. That's elite.
Yeah. So that was great. And then just like Curfew started, we won the audience award at South by. And, from there we did our international premiere at Venice Film Festival, which is another like top 5 festival.
Right.
Which was great. Got to hang out with, actually South by is when I really got to know Ron Perlman. Just be like, because every restaurant we went to, people would be like, oh my God, that's Hellboy.
Right.
And there was one point where we're having sushi somewhere and the bartender's like, Ron, you want to come behind the bar and do shots? He's just like, yeah, but I'm only going if Bear can come. They call me Bear. And it's just me and him just like doing whatever we want behind a bar. And I was like, this is great. If this is how filmmaking works, this is awesome.
So you were, as I mentioned before, you acted in Before I Disappear a little bit. You had a cameo, we'll say. I
think I have 4 cameos throughout the movie.
Yeah.
If you look closely.
And that was, you said that was just kind of by chance. They were just like, hey, we kind of just need someone to be in part of this entourage, basically, for Ron Perlman's character.
Yeah, it was like in pre-production when we were looking at casting, like Ron Perlman came up and I was like, kind of looked at Sean. I was like, we should get Ron Perlman. Like, Ron Perlman's amazing. Yeah. And at the time, I think Sons of Anarchy was probably mid-series or something. Maybe it was towards the end. But I was like, Ron Perlman, phenomenal actor. And eventually, Sean put an offer into him. He was like, I loved Curfew. Like, I'm going to come on. That's great. He had a lot of scheduling issues. So we basically had 2 days to shoot him out. Yeah. And we shot at the Gramercy Theater in the basement, which was cool. But on that day, like, I'm just kind of doing whatever grunt work to like get things going. Yeah, and he pulls me aside and he goes, Bear, come here. And he goes, this is Ron Perlman. And I was like, yeah, I know this is Ron Perlman. Well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, you're going to be in the scene with Ron Perlman. And I'm like, you're an asshole, dude. Like, you got to warn me about this. Yeah. And he's like, all right, well, the camera's up. So basically you're going to walk into this room. And the scene was Ron Perlman. They kind of discover this dead girl in the club that he is running. So the scene is, it's me and another good friend, Joe DeVito, who are part of his entourage. Should we walk in, see the dead body, and basically I go to walk out as Ron Perlman slams Joe like into the wall, and he's screaming at him. And I like didn't see Ron Perlman act yet, like in person, and I like generally got freaked out and like ran out of the bathroom. Yeah, because he just like threw him against the wall and started screaming, and I was like, "Oh, this is like a real fight." Yeah, and then it just the first 2 takes, I was just like, "Oh wow, okay, oh yeah, it's a movie. We're making a movie." And I kind of chilled out, and it worked out.
That's I kind of had a similar experience, but I missed out on it. When I was living in LA. Before I found a job, I was just doing background acting. I just went to CAA and signed up, and it was Central Casting. That's who I was with.
I was gonna say CAA, you get a good agent there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I did it for like 3 days because I just needed a paycheck, and they give you minimum wage, and they give you a check at the end of the day when you're an extra. So
and they feed you.
Yeah, oh yeah, craft services, baby, some matzo ball soup. And the girl that I was kind of hooking up with, my neighbor, she was trying to be an actress, comedian, like she was doing that whole thing, and she told me about it because I needed a job, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. Sure. Oh, yeah, all these people are trying to be actors. I'm just trying to be street atmosphere. But I eventually found a job as a video game tester, which not as cool as it sounds. And then I get a call one day from Central Casting, and they're like, hey, we have a featured role for you, which is weird. Now that I know what the movie is, it's not that weird. But at the time, it was like, dude, when I got my headshots, I was wearing like tattered T-shirt, like it had holes in it and shit, because like I didn't care. I wasn't trying to be anything, I wasn't trying to impress anybody. But turns out, so I'm on the phone. They said, we have this featured role for you. You're going to be acting in a couple scenes across from John Malkovich. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. And then they were like, but the only thing is we might need you to perform nude. And I was like, well, I already have a job, so thanks. And that was it. And then I found out later the movie was called Gardens of the Night. It made a whopping $10,000 at the box office, I think.
Because it didn't have you nude.
Yeah, pretty much. But I realized the character that they told me, because it's on Amazon Prime right now, and I watched it. It's actually not a terrible movie. But the character that they were going to have me play turned out to be the male lead. And I not only would have been acting with John Malkovich, but also Gillian Jacobs.
Oh.
Who, that was like one of her first movies, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because it was like 2007. So, now Gillian Jacobs is never going to fall in love with me now. I'm never going to be able to meet John Malkovich. And, it's often one of those things that I think about, like, you know, when you're having that existential crisis, it's like, fuck, should I just taken that gig and stayed in LA instead of coming back to Pennsylvania? Like, would I be a fucking movie star right now, or a director, or act, you know, whatever. Yeah. But it's just weird how so many people just, that's their come up, is just a lucky break where they're like in this fucking movie that makes $10,000 at the box office and no one sees, and then, well, I guess people do see it because of the festivals. That's probably how these people, you know, Gillian Jacobs is now a pretty well-known actress. John Malkovich, of course, everybody knows who the fuck John Malkovich is, and that wasn't because of that movie, but it's just it's weird how those coincidences can turn into something bigger for people, especially in the movie business and show business.
But also, like, if you did do the movie, there could be memes about you. Like,
right? Yeah, it's true.
All your friends would be sending you screenshots of you naked.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And the thing is, like I said, I watched the movie. There was no male nudity in it at all. So I probably could have just been like, well, I'm not comfortable with that, but I'll take it. I'll take the role.
Maybe you just would have been a fluffer.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a porno. But I'd fluff Gillian Jacobs, that's for sure. If you're listening, Gillian, call me.
You're not into Malkovich?
Oh, you know, I'll do pretty much anything to get ahead. It's probably not the best joke to make about the movie business at this point in time, when you got the Weinstein shit going on and everything. So yeah, I'll edit that out. I won't. Don't worry. It'll stay in. Where was I going with this conversation now? This is why I should make notes for myself. I really should.
You were just talking about your failed film career.
Yeah.
How you moved back home.
Oh yeah, no,
you're a really good comedian.
That's up for debate too. Really good comedian, but he said it, not me. It's so weird that when I was out there, you know, I said I moved out there with the goal of making the next great blockbuster film, and then I got a job as a video game tester, and I was like, fuck movies. Like, I'll work. I worked 11 hours a day, 7 days a week for that, playing the same video game over and over and over again. And eventually I got fired because I was just a temp, and the game was out. It made it through to production, and I missed probably like 2 or 3 days of work a week just because my car wouldn't start. And I lived in the city and worked in the valley, and it was just like, fuck, I can't make it today. And yeah, they eventually fired me, which was lame. And then
you can't play video games at your house. You couldn't work remotely on that.
For some people, they make that exception, but it's very everything's very, very much under like lock and key. They don't want sense. People because you get a new build every day. You get a new rev where they try to fix bugs that you report, and then when they fix those bugs, it's a computer program. That's all it is. So you fix one thing, something else is fucked up now because you fix that one thing, and it's up to me or the testers to find that. And basically break the game, which is why developers and programmers fucking hate testers. They hate everybody. I still work in QA. That's what I do now. just in machining. But every QA is the most despised fucking position anywhere. It's the most despised department of any company, any business, because we're the ones that tell you where you fucked up, basically.
Yeah.
And no one likes being told that they fucked up. So it can be very stressful, for sure. So back to my guest, though, the whole reason I'm doing this. This has allowed you to travel a lot, also, you know, being in these film festivals and just shooting in certain locations. I know you were recently just in Iceland, right?
Yeah, I helped produce a project for first-time feature director Melissa Fitzsimmons. We had worked together on a few short films. We actually met 6 years ago at a film festival called Hill Country, which is in this little German town in the middle of Texas. It's kind of surreal, really good spot. But yeah, she's been bugging me for a while to like help her out, and she wrote a script, and we knew that we wouldn't have much money to shoot it. But the idea was to go to Iceland with 7 of us, and we found a few bucks, and we shot a very micro budget indie movie. I'm gonna say it was like around $40,000 we shot the movie for, and most of that was like finding housing in Iceland.
Right.
But we went for the scenery, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So we're in the editing room now. Hopefully find one more investor to finish it up, and hopefully premiere somewhere big and do some more traveling.
Yeah. And I'm honestly jealous because you threw a post out there the one day that was like, hey, we need someone to come who can just cook. And I'm like, fuck, I need to get a passport, because I'll fucking throw shit in a crock pot, and there you go. Like, you know, I just want to go to Iceland, you know, you don't even have to pay me that much. I'd just do it.
We didn't pay anyone to do that job.
Yeah.
They got a free flight though.
Yeah, well, and that's payment enough for me or whoever took the opportunity, you know.
We actually got one of the actors to be the chef as well.
Oh yeah,
this guy Raul, who Melissa met. She did a fellowship as a part of the Reykjavik International Film Festival, and I guess she met Raul there, who lives in Barcelona. So when she wrote a part for him in the movie, but we weren't sure we'd be able to afford to fly him out. And then when the whole catering thing came up, we were like, oh, well, it'd be cheaper to fly a friend, have them on set to help out, and just cook for the crew. Because we basically found this really small town in the middle of Iceland and just shot. So it worked out really great because Raul could do his part, and he was a really good cook. And and it was cheaper to fly someone from Spain than it is from the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then me and Raul became instant friends. I showed him how to make a curry. He had never had curry.
Nice. Maybe you can show me that, because I love curries and I don't really know how to make them. So
yeah, it was actually my first time, but my girlfriend kind of told me over text how to do it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna show Raul how to do this.
Sweet, man.
And then in return, he showed me how to make a really good Spanish omelet. So
that's good. Just people helping people, dude.
Filmmaking.
Yeah.
Learn how to cook.
Well, I typically try to keep these to about an hour, and we're sitting at 53 minutes. Is there? I'm not exactly sure when this is going to be released, because I haven't released any episodes of this yet. But is there anything coming up that you wanna promote? Anything like that? You know, I'll share some links to some of the trailers to some of the
cool
films you've worked on, for sure. Just try to get the word out there about the work that you're doing. But is there anything in particular right now that might be coming up in the next year or two, something to look out for? I know it can be tough to look that far into the future in that industry, but
there's a few things. As we talked about, my short film, The Helping Hand. I'm in 40 film festivals right now. Most of them already happened, but for the next 6 to 8 months, there'll probably be another, hopefully 20 or 30 more. So that'll be screening throughout the U.S. and internationally. Like I said, I'm in post-production on the movie Everything in the End. Hopefully we'll have a film premiere late spring of next year. And then I'm pitching a feature script that I wrote with Damon Russell called Birthmark, and it's basically like a psychological thriller about a surrogate. So we're kind of looking for some smaller investors and kind of putting together our pre-production plan, basically. So if anyone's interested in being an executive producer, that's all we need.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you for coming in. I know, it worked out that you were in town, and I could get someone to talk about who's had some larger than life experiences, I'll say. I mean, that's really cool. It's really admirable that you kept grinding and you're doing your thing, man. And it's great to see.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to come back and promote some shit.
Well, you have a bedroom that I can sleep in. So
That's true. The bed that's also the cat's room.
Ooh, even better.
Yeah, as long as you don't have allergies, you'll be all right in there.
Take a Benadryl.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right. Well, this has been A Human Interaction. I'm your host, Andrew Hambone Hambleton. Thanks again to my guest, Brenden Hubbard. Check out any of the films mentioned here, The Helping Hand, Curfew the Short, which became Before I Disappear, which I highly recommend, Cul-de-sac, any of them, wherever you can find them.
Amazon Prime.
They're all on Amazon Prime?
The shorts are Before I Disappear, I think it's just iTunes right now, because we did our Netflix 2 years and we did a Hulu 2 years. So I think it's just kind of in limbo right now.
Okay.
But I think you can get it probably on Prime and iTunes.
Sweet. And if you'd like to check out the movie that I passed up, My Great Opportunity, it's called Gardens of the Night, starring John Malkovich and Jillian Jacobs. Jillian, if you're listening, give me a call. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Dear Mombascus Romeo, do you cry yourself to sleep? For all of your labor, it was just happenstance. A little punk kid like me happened to get his hands on one of your progeny. These men are only the finest Indian spruce produce. Sorrowful tones, only the happiest little boys produce. I think we'll meet someday in Sevilla. I will play La Catedral so well. I will freak at 10,000 beats per minute. You will say, holy guacamole, you're wicked. You're wicked, kick it. Scrapes and bruises well. Back she wears them like a queen. But it's also beautiful, powerful, and unbelievable, conscious to match. Easy anthropomorphism, homeboy, she's a cat. But it's also beautiful, powerful, and unbelievable, conscious to match. Easy anthropomorphism, homeboy, she's a cat. These men are tall. Only the finest Indian spruce produce. Sorrowful tones, only the happiest little boys produce. I think we'll meet someday in Sevilla. I will play La Catedral so well. I will freak at 10,000 beats for a minute. You will say, holy God.